Shamsuddin Jabbar rams his truck through New Year revelers. Shoots at cops after killing 15 and injuring 13. Suspected Islamic State link to terror strike. Terror rears ugly head in US on New Year. Trump calls attacks pure evil. Will Trump declare war on radical Islamist terror in the US? That is our top focus on India First.
So the New Orleans terror suspect Shamsuddin Jabbar, he rammed his pickup truck deliberately into the crowd, and we'll show you those images in just a moment. He knew where to evade police barricades, and we'll show you those images as his vehicle comes slamming down. I mean, the speed, the police says it was a deliberate act of terror, and he crashed through some of those massive barricades that had been put up because he had that 150 Ford 150 electric pickup truck rammed through the crowd that was celebrating the arrival of the new year. Investigators are now searching for not just the motive, but also suspects and accomplices who may have helped Shamsuddin Jabbar, rig the improvised explosive device to his pickup truck, and those who may have provided logistics for this terror strike. Why would someone who served in the US Armed Forces, and I want to show you images of Shamsuddin Jabbar, why would someone who served with the US Armed Forces did a tour of duty in Afghanistan? He'd served with the US Armed Forces from 2007 to 2020. He was someone who did a degree in computer information in 2017 from the University of Georgia. He was someone who was working at a very prestigious consultancy firm, earning $10,000 a month. The question also is, what will US President-elect Donald Trump do? How will he react to this threat, this rising threat of radical Islamist terror? We explore. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines at 10. Voter list big flashpoint in Delhi. BJP claims Sanjay Singh's wife registered in multiple constituencies. The Aam Aadmi Party Rajya Sabha MP cries foul, files a defamation case. Veer Savarkar showdown in national capital. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lay the foundation stone of a Delhi University college named after Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. Congress sees red, says name the college after Dr. Manmohan Singh. Mamata Banerjee's big infiltration conspiracy charge. Bengal Chief Minister insists BSF permitting terrorists into Bengal at the centre's behest. BJP accuses Mamata Banerjee of indulging in minority vote bank politics. Sambal survey report submitted in local court. Sources say evidence of a temple found within the Shahi Jama Masjid. Ahead of India's do-or-die test match in Sydney, sources tell India Today Rohit Sharma may be rested. Jasprit Bumrah likely to be the captain for the fifth and the final test. The United States is mourning the deaths of 15 people killed by a suspected radical Islamist terrorist, Shamsuddin Jabbar, who rammed through his rented Ford F-150 electric pickup truck into the crowd of New Year Eve revelers on the Bourbon Street in New Orleans. The FBI is carrying out an intense background check now. Background check of Shamsuddin Jabbar, who not only served in the past in the US military in Afghanistan, but was working for a very prestigious consultancy firm in the United States. He was earning at least $10,000 a month. So clearly, it wasn't either poverty or hunger or lack of education, since he also had a degree in computers from the Georgia University. So what led to this terror attack is a big question that the FBI is seeking answers to. We bring you more in this report.
As the world ushered in the new year, terror rocked America. A truck rammed through the crowd at a street in New Orleans, leaving 15 dead and dozens injured. The white truck was seen rampaging through the streets, displaying an ISIS flag on its back, evading a police blockade. The vehicle sped through the crowd, plowing into pedestrians. It then made a U-turn and continued to drive at full speed. The situation worsened when the driver exited the truck and began firing at the crowd. The FBI is now investigating the attack as an act of terror and has identified the attacker as 42-year-old Shamshuddin Jabbar, who was killed in the ensuing gunfight. Jabbar, a US citizen from Texas, had served in the US Army in Afghanistan. The truck used in the attack had a Texas license plate. Along with the ISIS flag, weapons and multiple IEDs were found inside the vehicle. The FBI is investigating his connection to ISIS.
That this particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk and got around the hard target, where he did have a car there, we had barriers there, we had officers there, and they still got around.
US President-elect Donald Trump called the attack an act of evil and pledged his administration's full support to the law enforcement agencies. President Joe Biden revealed that the attacker, Jabbar, had posted suspicious videos hours before the attack.
The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. I directed my team to make sure every resource is made available to federal, state, and local law enforcement.
Even as investigations continued in the New Orleans attack, at least 11 people were killed in a mass shooting at a nightclub in Queens, New York. The police have not yet disclosed the motive or identified suspects. The shooting occurred on New Year's Eve at around 11:20 p.m. near the nightclub. With only a few days remaining before the Trump administration takes over, Donald Trump has vowed to ensure justice for the victims. Bureau Report, India Today.
Big story coming in. The US media is now reporting that the driver of the Cybertruck, that incident of that explosion that took place at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, he was an active duty Green Beret. He was a US Army soldier, an active duty Green Beret assigned to the 10th Special Forces Group and holding the rank of a Master Sergeant. Remember, we were just talking about Shamshuddin Jabbar, who held a military rank and was an active duty soldier between 2007 and 2020 and had done a tour of duty in Afghanistan between 2009 and 10. So there's a US Army connection in the first terror attack in New Orleans, and now we are being told that in the Cybertruck incident, the Trump Tower at Las Vegas, the driver of that Cybertruck holds the rank of a Master Sergeant, an active duty US Special Forces Master Sergeant, and he was apparently on leave from an assignment. He was on an active duty assignment in Germany. He came back to Colorado, rented a truck and went to Las Vegas. This is the situation in the United States of America. What should one make of the two incidents here? And of course, there's a third incident that took place at the Queens in New York, We'll tell you about that also in greater detail, where a man opened fire and 11 people were injured. 3 incidents, but let's talk about these 2 first. The ones in New Orleans and Las Vegas. Is there a link? Both the electric trucks were rented from the same agency. In both cases, there's someone with a military link involved. Let's try and make sense of these developments. Joining me on this special broadcast of India First is Seema Sirohi. She's an expert on India-US relations, is an expert who joins us from Washington, D.C. Also with us is Irina Zuckerman, a national security and rights lawyer who joins us from New York. And Abhijit Iyer Mitra is a senior research fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. And Irina Zuckerman, if I could come to you first. Is it too premature to draw a link between the New Orleans and the Las Vegas incidents? Or could these be coordinated terror strikes? And what do you make of the military link, ma'am?
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to everyone. Yes, the events are without a doubt connected because not only both individuals were had military service, but they had actually served at the same military base. Additionally, the 2 vehicles involved in these security incidents that are currently being investigated as possible terrorist attacks were rented from the same car rental company on the same day, and in both cases there appears to be sign of collaboration without external parties. It's worth noting that the vehicles were actually registered to the names of other individuals that were not the people who were using them at the time of the explosions and the vehicle attack. So everything is pointing to the fact that these 2 individuals were somehow connected. Whether the second individual was a radicalized extremist is not yet clear, but we do know that the suspect in the first attack did have an ISIS flag, did pledge allegiance to ISIS prior to the attack, and has been known for exploring extremist Islamist thought, even going back many years to his youth, according to his brother.
So going back many years, he had those thoughts. Seema Sirohi, the choice of locations, Bourbon Street in New Orleans and the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, random? Or could they be carefully chosen to send a message? Both military links, the Cybertruck driver and active duty Green Beret. What are you picking up?
Well, both locations are, filled with tourists. And the timing, New Year's Eve, people are out and about drinking. And Bourbon Street in New Orleans is famous for, people coming in. You can, it's one of the few places where you can buy a drink and just drink outside. Usually you're not supposed to in the rest of the United States. But this is such a tourist spot. But it turns out that the bollards were down because the city was repairing them. So the fellow was able to sort of maneuver his way onto the sidewalk. And that's really unfortunate because vehicles have become one of the, instruments of attacks recently. And lots of attacks have used vehicles to ram through crowds. So
in France,
Las
in
Vegas
Italy,
again.
in Germany, in America now.
Exactly. So we don't know whether the attacks are linked. FBI hasn't said that. But, if you connect the dots, it could be. But we just don't know as of yet. But one thing is clear, that ISIS does still continue to inspire a lot of people, and through social media propaganda and things like that. And for army officer to have done this is especially disturbing.
It indeed is. And in fact, I'm going to come to that in just a moment. But Abhijit, I want to bring you in now. Indications are, at least in the New Orleans attack, that it wasn't a lone wolf attack. It does appear prima facie that someone helped Shamsuddin Jabbar rig up the IEDs, rent a pickup truck, rig together the IED at some hotel, and does appear to be a part of a wider conspiracy. Or can this be palmed off as two independent lone wolf attacks?
So Gaurav, like Irena pointed out, there are too many coincidences out here, too many connection points out here. The lone wolf attack, this lone wolf individual radicalization. If there was a radicalization for dummies, if you want to call it, then that franchise would belong to ISIS. They started these individual lone wolf radicalization models on the internet. That had largely been controlled since that group had been defeated in Syria.
Yes.
But clearly, it's made its presence felt again. One important thing to remember, Gaurav, is tomorrow is the death anniversary of Qasem Soleimani. Now, I don't know what that plays into this, because he was, of course, a Shia, and ISIS is a Sunni group. There are so many messages that could be coming out here. This could be a very targeted message that we are able to get into your military, either ex-military or serving military. Remember, a Green Beret is actually US Special Forces. So that's a particularly elite unit you're looking at. That was targeted for radicalization, in which case that is just the beginning of a pretty worrying episode. That said, we need to remember there are a few other things that are important out here. Like Seema said, the bollards had been removed. Was this a case of bad planning? And in New Orleans, the gentleman, I don't want to call him gentleman, the terrorist in question was just lucky that the bollards had been removed. And in the case, because clearly in the case of the Trump Hotel, they had done their planning very badly. A Cybertruck is built like a tank. It is one of the strongest, vehicles out there, short of an armored vehicle, that you can get. So the explosion was actually very well contained. But the very fact that explosives were involved, significant similar explosive types were involved here and there. Because remember, in this particular car in New Orleans, the explosives did not explode. An IED was found. In Las Vegas, the explosives actually blew up and were contained by the Cybertruck that prevented significant damage.
So let me bring in Irina. Yes.
Coincidences happening.
Too many coincidences. There are commentators in the US, Irina Zakman, who say that US needs to probe deeper when it comes to preachings at various mosques within the United States of America, and especially the mosque that Jabbar attended. How was a disciplined soldier brainwashed to the extent that he could, one, follow Islamic State ideology, two, carry out a terror attack? Thinking about it is one thing, carrying out that attack is altogether different.
Well, I think there needs to be a probe in many different directions. Mosques are certainly one of them. The question is, though, why would somebody like a U.S. Soldier, a military professional, born and raised in the U.S., be susceptible to such teachings at an adult age when his brother was not? What are the other factors that could have contributed to the radicalizations? What was he reading? Who were his associates? Was he approached by somebody outside the mosque? Was he also prone to information available online? What was his family like? Was there anything that pushed him in that direction? All of these factors certainly need to be examined. But more importantly, for the time being, we need to figure out how could somebody with absolutely no Muslim upbringing, which appears to be the case in the second incident, end up being pulled into this sort of activity if there was no early exposure through family or through regular community ties or mosque attendance. Then what prompted him to join up to end up in the situation that he was in?
Seema Shirohi, there are reports about his social media, Jabbar's social media platform, where he speaks of being inspired by the Islamic State, when he speaks of words to the effect, wanting to kill. And this means there was information in public domain. This means whether it was his community, his friend circle, the police or the intelligence agencies, there were failures at multiple levels, and the Trump administration, they clearly have their task cut out.
Absolutely. And already you can see many of the experts on center-right media and right media channels are saying that it's because of the open border policy that the Biden administration followed that hundreds of people have come in who have links to terrorism. So this happened to be someone who is a US citizen. But the FBI itself has said that thousands of terrorists are here, about 1,400, I believe, if I remember correctly. So absolutely, they have their work cut out for them. And those with terror links or criminal records will be the first targets of deportation. And hopefully the Democratic-run states will cooperate in that, because early indications are they're ready to fight. You know, they have said, we will not surrender these people. So it's kind of an insane situation where
Why would people say this, Seema Sirohi? It just defies logic. It defies logic. Why would people say we will not surrender either criminals or terrorists? And if the FBI is saying that there are 1,400 terrorists already inside who've crossed borders illegally and are in the United States of America, why would there not be a massive crackdown? What's the thinking? What's the logic?
It defies logic, as you said. It totally does. But, for example, the governor of Illinois, Mr. Pritzker, has said that, you know, I will stand between the law enforcement, the federal law enforcement, and the people, illegal immigrants. So, I mean, I don't know if it's just politics they're playing, and when it comes down to the actual situation, whether they'll cooperate, we don't know yet. But one thing is clear, the law enforcement doesn't have the resources to monitor the massive ocean of, social media information and propaganda and all this ISIS propaganda that's going on. So this could be somebody, FBI is saying that Jabbar was inspired by ISIS, not necessarily directed by ISIS. Right now, there's very little information as to what exactly was
no,
it.
like India's talking about massive de-radicalization that's required in pockets here. Perhaps similar de-radicalization, if not more, may be required in the United States of America, because, Abhijit, the problem appears to be much deeper. And I want to pick up that thread, where you were talking about where a disciplined soldier who's done an active tour of duty in Afghanistan could be turned and made to act like a terrorist, made to carry out a terror attack. It just goes on to show that the US could be sitting on a ticking time bomb.
It's the perfect storm, because it's a whole load of things that we've known, that we were traditionally told 20 years back were bad immigration policy, which are now celebrated as almost like a religion. Unmonitored immigration being one of them. You keep getting these, research papers that show that immigrants, and mind you, very dubious research paper that show that illegal immigrants contribute to the economy simply by avoiding the need for a security blanket, by avoiding the need for healthcare, minimum requirements that a registered worker would want. The downside is you don't do security scanning. And remember, one kind of illegality leads to other kinds of illegality, because illegality is fungible. Once you find a way of smuggling marijuana in, you find a way of smuggling cocaine in. That is your way of smuggling guns and things like that in.
Absolutely.
So, all illegality is linked. We have seen this on the India-Bangladesh border out here. Yes. This is the same thing happening in America. So you're going to see a very significant increase in crime, sure, but this was not immigrant crime. We need to remember this. this seems to be something like a targeted radicalization. I think because of all the security measures since 9/11, it's become impossible to do particularly large scale attacks, except say shooting attacks, because guns are still, quite readily available in America. But you look at
Irina,
the
I have
similar.
the last 30 seconds. I have the last 30 seconds on this part of the broadcast. So I just want to understand from you. Jabbar had served in the US Armed Forces between 2007 and 20. He had served in Afghanistan. He had a degree in computer information systems from Georgia State University in 2007. He was 17. He was working for a consultancy earning 10,000 US dollars a month. Somebody like that would never be suspected of being an Islamic State terrorist. So which means the FBI and the state police clearly have a huge mountain to climb.
Actually, it actually fits the profile. What you find is that a certain category of people, remember, a lot of Americans are like Indians. They don't travel and don't know much about the world. Once you start traveling and reach a certain income threshold that sees a lot of the outside world, that is actually when radicalization begins. Remember the Sri Lanka Easter bomb blast? They were carried out by a billionaire's family out there. So it's actually it's a bandwidth, and this gentleman actually fits that bandwidth, which is very disturbing. But even in India, you've seen this: doctors being members of ISIS cell and
Computer
things like
engineers earning lakhs and lakhs working for Islamic State, even in India. You're absolutely right. Irina Seema Sirohi and Abhijit Iyer Mitra for joining me here on this India Today special. Many thanks. We'll be tracking the story very closely. A quick break. Coming up on the other side, Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, she's launched a frontal attack on the BSF and the BJP, alleging infiltration conspiracy to destabilize her state. Infiltration from Bangladesh. Centers instructions to BSF, let it happen and destabilize Bengal. That story and lots more coming up. Stay with us.